Today, I am going to continue talking about the book Ground, Path, and Fruition. And I am on the section that is on actual practice. And we are talking about the Chenrezig practice. And it is done in a group, usually in a shrine room. And when it's done that way, it's called a puja, which is basically a chanted ritual that's done together as a group. But it can also be done at home by yourself if you have had an empowerment and the reading instructions and the reading transmission. So we stopped last week in the middle of this section, and tonight I am going to complete this chapter. What has happened so far is that we always start out these pujas with going for refuge and then generating bodhicitta, refuge in the three jewels, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, and then engendering this motivation of bodhicitta, which is that I'm going to be doing this practice so that I can be of more benefit to all sentient beings, and especially so that I can attain Buddhahood, so that I will be of most benefit to sentient beings. And then from there are various parts of this practice that I've already talked about, but again, to review them very, very briefly, we generate a visualization of Chenrezig, who is the Bodhisattva of great compassion, and we visualize him over our heads and over the heads of all sentient beings. He is white in color. He is a peaceful bodhisattva, a peaceful deity. And so he is visualized wearing peaceful ornaments and peaceful clothing. And then, as I said, white in color. So from there, various things happen. Um, uh, there is the 7-branch prayer and so forth. And now we've gotten to the point where we are supplicating him and we're asking for, you might say, certain benefits, requesting them from him. And we get to the point where we start specifically talking about the 6 realms of samsara, which are the hell realm, the hungry ghost, or the preta realm, the animal realm, the human realm, the jealous God realm, and then the full God realm. And last week, we discussed the hell realm and the hungry ghost realm, and discussed also the animal realm. And in going through these different realms, I talked about what causes rebirth in these realms, what the experience of beings in these realms is like. And then also, the aspiration is, of course, that they be reborn in Chenrezig's presence in Dewa Chen. It's said differently. There are 6 short sections of just 4 lines that go through each of these 6 realms, and they all end slightly different, but the meaning is the same. I'm going to actually go to the text here, and so I can actually go over what the aspiration is of the realms that we've already discussed. So in the hell realm, the aspiration is, Supreme Deity, may they all be born in your presence. And then we recite Chenrezig's mantra, which is Om Mani Padme Hung. And for the hungry ghost realm, the aspiration is, may they all be born in your supreme realm, the Potala. And the Potala is Chenrezig's celestial palace in Dewa Chen. And in Lhasa, the center of government and the Dalai Lama's residence is called the Potala because the Dalai Lama is considered an emanation of Chenrezig. So that's the aspiration, that the Yidaks, that they be reborn in the Potala next to Chenrezig. And then again, Om Mani Padme Hung. For the animals, the aspiration is, protector, may they be born in your presence. Again, referring to Chenrezig. And then Om Mani Padme Hung. So that brings us up to where we are today in the book, the human realm. The human realm, rebirth in the human realm, is caused by a combination of wholesome actions and unwholesome actions. It actually is difficult to be reborn in the human realm. There are many, many, many more animals when you include insects and microorganisms than there are human beings. And then when you look at the hell realm and the hungry ghost realm, there are even more beings in those two realms than are in the animal realm. And the reason for this is that sentient beings are so confused that they do many, many more actions that are unwholesome than are wholesome. So it's important to realize that as you are a human being, you actually have some very, very good karma and have done a lot of good things in the past. Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche would always say it takes the practice of discipline to be reborn in a human body, that in your past life you engaged in discipline. So this is the cause for being reborn in the human realm, is a mixture, but a lot of wholesome actions. The experience of the human realm, I guess I really don't need to tell you, but it is described as a mixture of suffering and happiness. And some people, of course, are more unhappy than others. Some people suffer more than others. Some people's circumstances are more difficult than other people. But the interesting thing is that the circumstances don't necessarily determine how much suffering a person is experiencing or how happy they are. If you look at Milarepa, who had very few possessions and spent much of his life living in caves, even in a Tibetan winter, he was a very happy person. And yet there are many people alive today that are wealthy, that are billionaires, and they are very unhappy people. So this is an important point that circumstances, happiness, and suffering uh, are different. That bad circumstances don't mean suffering, and good circumstances don't mean happiness. So human beings suffer from lots of different things. The Buddhists like to have lists, and so there are 8 items in this list. The first 4 we're very familiar with: the suffering of birth, and it is suffering because once you are born, you will now experience the next 3, which is sickness, old age, and old age is a process of decline and change. And then, of course, the suffering of death. Birth is also painful for the baby. Uh, Babies don't come into the world smiling and laughing. They, from what I have heard, but I've not had any direct experience. When my son was born, this was back in 1967, and they would not allow me in the delivery room. They said that men were a problem. Things have changed, but anyway, to the best of my knowledge, babies are not necessarily happy and laughing at the point of birth. So then the next 4 are the suffering of not being able to accomplish what you desire. That you could say desire is limitless today, uh, thanks to various things, such as media, the digital world, advertising, and so forth. But even before all of that, still desire was limitless. That it's very easy to desire much more than it is possible for you to accomplish, you to own, and so on and so forth. And so we have many desires, or human beings have many desires that are unfulfilled. And then the next suffering is encountering what you do not desire. That we are constantly running into situations that we want to avoid, constantly having problems. And because of impermanence, things like our cars need maintenance. Our house needs cleaning, even if we don't own it, but where we stay, it needs cleaning. The dishes need cleaning. We need to eat 3 meals a day, and someone has to prepare them, and someone has to, you might say, pay for them, even if it's the groceries, and on and on and on and on and on. That life is dealing with one thing after another, when we would rather that we could eliminate dealing with it in some way or another. Then there's a suffering of restlessness or busyness that you might say not being able to sit still with yourself. And finally, the last suffering is the suffering of dissatisfaction and feeling deprived. Sometimes it's called the poverty mentality. So these are the sufferings of the human realm. And on the other hand, the human realm is, well, it's very desirable for us as Buddhist practitioners, that human birth is a very important threshold, that this, in the human realm, this is where we have a chance to come in contact with the Dharma, where we have a good chance of having neither or avoiding being overwhelmed by suffering or overwhelmed by pleasure, as can happen in the two God realms. But also there is the opportunity, and this is why it's risky, to engage in very negative behavior, which will take you to a lower realm. So it's very, very important to be careful of your actions of body, speech, and mind, and to use the resources that you have in a way that is beneficial to you in the future, not just tomorrow or today. The human realm or human birth is also the foundation that we need to experience complete awakening, to accomplish Buddhahood or the state of Vajradhara. So the human realm is considered the highest realm in samsara in terms of this opportunity. And as I said already, but the third point is that this is a realm where, because of our chances to act in a negative way, that we can very, very quickly go down to a lower realm through our actions in the human realm, because we have the opportunity to cause so much suffering. And then the final point here is that in his mantra, Om Mani Padme Hung, the knee represents Chenrezig's compassion and his ability to purify the karma from the human realm. So the aspiration in that realm, the human realm, I'll get to this, is may they be born in the supreme pure land of Dewa Chen. Dewa Chen is Amitabha's pure land, and it means the land of great bliss. Well, I've got this open. I would go to the next two realms in terms of their aspiration. The jealous God realm which I'm going to talk about next. The aspiration there is, may they be born in your realm, the Potala, and it is the same aspiration for the full gods. So we go through each of these realms, discuss a little bit about what it is that causes rebirth there, and then with this aspiration that they are reborn in a pure land. So in the jealous God realm, being born there is a result of the accumulation of merit and of keeping moral discipline, following discipline. But by doing these things under the influence of jealousy. And so this is why they're called the jealous gods. They've engaged in a lot of very good behavior, but there is this element of jealousy present, the klesha of jealousy. And so when a person dies that has those elements present, this is where they will be reborn. And this might sound very good. So this is the experience of beings in this jealous God realm, is that they have the capacity to obtain wealth, tremendous amounts of wealth. They have very beautiful bodies. They have the ability to foresee what could happen and will happen in the future. And they can see what is going on in the human realm and can see into the future in the human realm. Now, they are considered as being a possible negative force for humans because they can be jealous of humans and they have the ability of harming humans. Actually, when we get into the more advanced Vajrayana practices, this will come into play and will be talked about and discussed. For those of you that have done a Nyungne, again, it's a practice of thousand-arm Chenrezig. Again, we take into consideration these jealous gods and specifically do things to pacify them and so forth. But it's important to know this, that these jealous gods are not necessarily a positive force. I cannot speak for the authenticity of these people that claim they are channeling a great being. And perhaps some of them are, but needless to say, if they are channeling a jealous God, it might not be the best thing to do to follow what they say or consider what they say as worth listening to. These jealous gods are constantly in a, you might say, a status of wanting to fight because of their jealousy. They think that other gods have a better deal than they have, as well as even being jealous of humans. And as a result, they just keep on accumulating more negative karma as they use up, you might say, squander their positive karma. And When the jealous God realm is painted like it is in the Wheel of Life, there is always a tree there. And the tree is rooted in the jealous God realm, but it bears fruit in the full God realm. And this fruit, the flowers are absolutely wonderful, fragrant, beautiful, and the fruit produces bliss and is insurpassable beyond compare. And the jealous gods, of course, are jealous of the full gods being able to enjoy this, and they can't. And in these paintings of the realm, there is always a jealous god with an axe chopping this tree down. If the jealous gods can't appreciate it and enjoy it, then nobody can. And so the jealous gods are constantly fighting with the full gods, and the full gods, being more powerful, are always victorious. So to kind of sum them up, they are basically unsatisfied, continually unsatisfied, dissatisfied. They have very little peace as a result of this, and they do not know how to accumulate merit. And the Ma in Om Mani Padme Hung represents Chenrezig's compassion that purifies the karma in this realm. So this brings us to the God realm, the full God realm. And the cause of being born in this realm is pride from having kept moral discipline. You need this moral discipline. And pride for having achieved things like meditative stability, not necessarily perfected it, but having achieved some meditative stability. But it's very self-centered, this meditative stability. And the same thing with moral discipline. And this is actually why it is emphasized for us to have this altruistic attitude and to think of others and to wish that others are established on the path and achieve enlightenment. And their meditative stability is different than what we as Buddhists are working towards. It is been described as a bit like falling asleep. And in this state, you don't experience happiness and you don't experience suffering. You just kind of space out or blank out. And when they are not blanked out, they are just surrounded with very, very pleasing surroundings. And the problem is that, again, they do nothing to accumulate good karma, and they are little by little using up their bad karma. In both of these realms, the God and the jealous God realm, the beings tend to have very long lives. And, but then when they run out of karma, they die. And there are different realms in the God realms, and to just go over this very, very, very briefly, there are the formless gods and the gods in the desire realm. The gods in the desire realm, their suffering is that after living very, very long, wonderful lives, they do know that they are going to die, and they know which realm they're going to be reborn in, and it's not going to be a good realm. And then it takes a very long time for them to actually die. And of course, the gods are totally repulsed by the very idea of death. And they don't want to have anything to do with this other god that is dying. And so they're abandoned. It reminds me a bit of what happened during the first part of the AIDS pandemic and what's happening now with COVID, where people are not allowed to be with their loved ones as they are dying. But here it isn't that others are keeping the gods from being with the one that is dying, is that they are so repulsed by you dying that they don't want to have anything to do with you. And I won't say much of the formless gods. Again, they have great power, and they have gained one-pointed concentration, but it is a worldly meditation, and they have this selfish attitude and an attachment to inner peace. And this is an important point, that we want to, in our practice, avoid attachment to inner peace. We want to avoid going into a state where we just kind of space out and experience pleasure. Sometimes when I am leading meditation, I see people meditating with a smile on their face. And that's an indication that they're experiencing this type of worldly meditation. And it's very pleasant, but it doesn't lead one to travel the path. You just get absorbed, self-absorbed in your own pleasure and your own ability to, you might say, block out the rest of the world. And the problem of this, whether it be when you are meditating or in the formless God realms, is that then you start seeing in the terms of the full gods, other beings, and how gross they are, and you develop a lot of aggression towards them and revulsion for them. And the full gods too, well, they can benefit us. They are also very easily angered. And so in the many of the Vajrayana practices, we take them into consideration too, and take care to avoid angering them and so forth. So in when a human is meditating and going into this state, of attachment to peace. And as I said, maybe smiling when they're meditating and so forth. What happens then is then they get up off of the cushion and go into their daily life. And immediately it's a similar situation where they realize that the conditions and other people are causing me to lose my inner peace, my serenity, and I'm no longer smiling. And it really gets into the self-other. When you're meditating, it's all about me, and then you get out, and then you find that, well, yeah, the world is full of problems, impermanence, difficult people, and so forth. And again, it can lead to you might say, certain arrogance, feeling better than all of this, above all of this. You might have a kind of a false sense of compassion, but it really is more like pity, because again, it's self-centered. It's not seeing these beings that are suffering as being equal. It's seeing yourself as being above them. They are below you, and you pity them. And that's a huge problem. So in the God realm, then, the Om in Om Mani Padme Hung, this represents Chenrezig's compassion that purifies the karma in this God realm. Then, before we get to the mantra, we pray that in all our future lives that our deeds are equal to that of Chenrezig. We pray that we are able to liberate beings, make them free and happy, and that our actions are like Chenrezig. And finally, we say, may all beings take karma into account, practice skillful actions, and act diligently. And finally, may they take up the Dharma. Then at this point, we transform ourselves into Chenrezig, his form. And then from the Kri in his heart, light radiates to all realms and purifies the confusion in those realms, and results in total purification. And it's important to, the best that you can, at least feel the presence of Chenrezig. Feel that you are inseparable from his body, his speech, and his mind. And this is not making up something, because our ultimate essence is Chenrezig. And we are acknowledging our ultimate essence by doing this. And so while you're chanting the mantra, imagine that all beings in all of these 6 realms are saying it along with you. Now, the actual meaning of the mantra is that Om is a beginning used in many, many mantras, and this represents the body of the Buddha. Mani means jewel, Padme means lotus, and then Hung represents the mind of all Buddhas. And in his, he has 4 arms and hands, and in 2 of them they're in prayer mudra, and he holds a wish-fulfilling jewel. And then in his second left hand, he holds a lotus. So you could say, this is from Bokar Rinpoche's book, Lord of Love, quote, one who holds the jewel and the lotus. So that is a good, you might say, translation for the mantra. And now to go through the different syllables here, Om is white, and this closes the door to rebirth in the full God realms, purifies the body. This seems to contradict what I said earlier here. I'm going to go back. No, I take that back. It does agree. I'm glad my notes are correct. The Ma is green, and this is the jealous god or the demigod realm, and this purifies speech. Ni is yellow, and that it purifies mind. The Pei is blue, and this purifies the animal realm and purifies the kleshas, our kleshas. The Mei is red, and that is for the hungry ghost realm, and this purifies latent conditioning, again, in our minds. And then the Hung is dark blue. This is the represents purifying the karma of the hell realms, and it also purifies the veils to knowledge. So after doing the mantra, and during the mantra, then we visualize light going out from the Hri in our heart center with the mantra around it. You visualize light going out. If you're really good at visualizing, then visualize these syllables in their different colors and it going to each one of these realms, concentrating on one realm at a time. In Bokar Rinpoche's book, he talks a lot about different visualizations. The important thing is to do what you can and not get discouraged thinking, oh, I can't do this. So then at the end, the realms unite, they dissolve into light, and then into you, and then you dissolve into the Hri, and then it dissolves from the bottom up, and then you rest. And then at the moment that a thought arises, visualize all beings and yourself as not being ordinary beings, but as being in the form of Chenrezig. And again, do this the best that you can. And then all sounds, whether they are pleasant or not, are looked at as being the sound of Chenrezig's mantra. And whatever thoughts arise in your mind are regarded as the natural thoughts of Chenrezig. This doesn't mean you have to follow these thoughts, but this again is a recognition of the fact that all of our thoughts, positive and negative, the essence is the Dharmakaya. And Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche says that if one could maintain this, there's no room for conflicting emotions to arise. Because along with this then is the recognition that these thoughts are nothing more than thoughts and have no inherent essence. And it's good actually in post-meditation when you're going through your daily life to occasionally stop and maybe visualize yourself as Chenrezig or say the mantra to yourself a few times And think about other beings being Chenrezig, because of course we can't keep this up 24/7 every second. But it's good to keep this in mind. And a story that Tai Situpa talks about that I found very interesting was about these two great practitioners, these two yogis, that a stair of light going up to a pure land appeared to both of them. The one got on it and walked up, and the other one started, and then he went back to get his favorite mala. And as soon as he turned around from getting the mala, the stair of light had disappeared and he missed his opportunity. So the point being that attachment can be a huge problem and keep us from, you might say, a good rebirth or a rebirth even in a pure land. To sum this up, to finish this up, then is the dedication of merit. And then here we are asking that through this merit, may I attain Chenrezig's level of realization. And this is the realization of complete enlightenment, complete Buddhahood, the state of Vajradhara. And then along with that is the aspiration to, having attained that, to bring all beings to that same level. The next dedication prayer is that through this merit, may I and all beings be reborn in Dewa Chen, which is Amitabha's Pure Land, as I mentioned. And so we are asking that after passing from this life, may I be reborn there, and once there, may I quickly attain enlightenment, and then come back, emanate to samsara, and liberate all beings. The next one simply says that through this virtue may all beings perfect the accumulation of merit and wisdom, and then attain the three bodies of the Buddha, the Dharmakaya, Nirmanakaya, and Sambhogakaya. And then finally, the last one is may bodhicitta, this thought, this aspiration to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all beings, and then actually doing things, engage in activity to accomplish enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. So may bodhicitta arise and ever flourish and grow.